Have you heard about the four big contingencies when it comes to real estate contracts and negotiations? Hey friends, Scott Smith with the Smith team at Keller Williams. I wanted to share with you some insight on what we are starting to see more and more of now that the market is shifting more into a stable market or even in some areas a buyer's market. The first one I want to share with you is a home sale contingency. We haven't seen these for a while now, but more and more sellers are open to a home sale contingency. Basically, what that means is we have a buyer that is interested in a property. They submit an offer, and we come to terms with that seller. And in between there, the buyer says, we need to sell our home in order to make the next transaction happen. So basically what the sellers are doing is saying, we're going to hitch our wagon to you as a buyer, but you need to sell your home first. And what that does is we put it in a time frame in place. The seller can still keep their property on the open market, but it is contingent upon a cancellation of that other offer. So what that means is we'll have a 48 or even a 72-hour contingency. So if we have a backup buyer that comes in non-contingent, that seller can accept that offer, deliver the removal of contingency to that first buyer, and then that first buyer has 48 or 72 hours to either remove that contingency on the sale of their home or figure out a way that they can purchase non-contingent. So that's probably the biggest one that we have seen more and more now coming into play. It is an opportunity for a seller to lock in a buyer, but it's also, you're only as good as the seller or the buyer's home and how that property is going to get sold, how fast that property is going to be sold. The second thing we're seeing more and more is the home inspection contingency. During the peak COVID years and the frenzy, buyers were waiving their home inspection contingencies, which is never a good thing. Some buyers are paying the price for that now. What we are seeing more and more now is a home inspection contingency. Basically what that means is we come to terms, both buyer and seller, and the buyer has 5, maybe 7 days to do their due diligence on an inspection, have a professional home inspector come into the property, look at it inside out, upside down, review those findings, and then within that 5 or 7 days, the buyer and seller, we've got that time frame still to negotiate any repairs or concessions as it would come up related to the home inspection contingency. The third home inspection, or the third contingency is a homeowner association contingency. And if someone is purchasing a home where there's a homeowner association, in Minnesota, we've got townhomes, we've got some association maintained neighborhoods, and that buyer has the opportunity, since they're not just buying into the home, they're also buying into the HOA. They've got an opportunity to review all the rules, regs, bylaws, financials that they are buying into. And typically that time frame is 10 days from the time that those are received. Now we can actually shorten that up to 3 days. Once the buyer receives all the documentation, they can peruse through those, make sure that they feel comfortable with them, and then remove that contingency. The fourth thing I want to share with you is the financing contingency. And this is always a sticky spot. Most buyers come into the process where they are pre-approved, but once we've finalized a contract between buyers and sellers, there is the financing contingency. They go from pre-approved to fully approved. That means bank appraisal. It means submitting all the documentation for the lender, finalizing everything as far as the rate lock-in, and the bank appraisal, making sure that that is squared away. So this is the last hurdle typically with a contract, and it is a sticky one because we want to make sure that that lender is doing their job, the buyer is submitting all of their documentation to make sure that we are ready to go and to close. There are some contingencies that are in place with that. We want to make sure that that's done in a timely manner. So if the sellers are moving on to their next home, they need to sell this one. It can obviously create a sticky chain of events if the buyer's financing is not solid. If you have any questions as far as navigating these contingencies in the process or any other ones, certainly reach out to us, 651-777-3434. Call, click, connect, however you want to get in touch with us. We're happy to help you navigate the process. That can be somewhat complex as the market is changing. Look forward to talking to you next week. Take care.